Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today's topic is the man who looks okay. And we're going to look at what that really means. I think that's a topic that a lot of men can relate to, but I think it's also a topic a lot of women who are partners to men can relate to. That age-old question, how are you? And the response is, I'm fine. But what's really the underlying answer to that question? So today I'm joined by Natalie Haya. Natalie, if you would go introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm Natalie Chaya. I have been a therapist for about 20 years. In that time, I also built an agency for therapists to practice intentionally with clients. And one of our values is to have affordable therapy. And so that's been a really important mission of mine, to get quality care to everyone. And I care about people. I really want to see people feel met, understood, and thrive. And so it's been my life's work.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. I'm Simon Salt. I am a writer, speaker, and I write at The Quiet Transition, where I explore the menopause transition through the male lens and help them show up better for the women in their lives, both personal and professional. So I had a question for you to start.
Mhm.
What do most people misunderstand about stress in men?
Well, that they have it, that they have it, and that it really underlies a lot of the behaviors. I find the one that is most misunderstood is aggression,
Hmm.
because usually what happens is that we receive, whoever's on the other end of that person receives the aggression, and what it really is a call for help. Cry,
Okay.
right? And so I think that's one of the most misunderstood points, and that I think what people also don't really realize is that men themselves don't know that they're stressed. You know,
Interesting.
so especially in a relationship that's, biologically female, biologically male, like that kind of relationship, right?
Mhm.
We are different people in our personalities, but also biologically, we have different systems that are at work. And many women I know are very attuned to how they're feeling or experiencing themselves. I mean, we have cycles that exist every month, so we really are in touch with where we are, hopefully. But men don't have that. And so they might not be as in touch. They don't realize that why they're acting the way that they're acting, or responding to something the way they're responding to, is actually a call or a cry for help.
Interesting. So, why do you think that it expresses itself as aggression and not just an open, hey, help me?
I mean, I want to clarify, there are many forms of expression, right? I mean,
Hmm.
withdrawal, isolation is a
Right.
type of expression. The one
Hmm.
that I think is most misunderstood is the anger, because it creates a response in the other person to withdraw.
Right.
And I think for a couple of reasons. One is the assumption that somebody should know themselves. They should know what they feel. They should know what they need. And I think we forget how men are still being conditioned to hold so much composure, to be able
Hmm.
to. And for the most part, I think that they have been able to, at least the men that I see. And the attempt to do that, to keep doing that, um, creates this kind of veneer that's very hard to access the truth of what's going on for them. And maybe they themselves don't want to admit it.
Right. So you think that's something they keep hidden because they don't want to admit it because they're being conditioned to stay composed and to stay in control, as it were?
Yeah. I think that exists for our culture as a whole,
Hmm.
especially this commercial culture. Like wherever you work, there's not a lot of space for your emotional range, right? So I think that that exists on a cultural level for all people. And then I think men have a particular niche of responsibility to be the strong ones, the ones keeping us safe, making sure we're okay. And if they're not okay, how are we going to be okay? Right. And so we haven't created a not really finding the word, but kind of like a ritual or a space where they can access the parts of them that don't feel really grounded at the moment.
Right. And what do you think those parts are? I mean, that's really interesting concept that you say they can't access those parts. What is it that they could or aren't accessing?
I think that's a great question. I mean, in my world, in the world of psychotherapy, we often look at the wounded child. So
Okay.
the child that went through something painful and learned that they couldn't get the support that they need outside for whatever reason. You could be around the most well-meaning family and still not have the thing that you needed at the time to then create around it a way to adapt. And you become over time as an adult the adapted part, not the wounded part. Because if you remove the adapted part and you look at the wound, like, it's not that smart, right? Because the last time you were in the wound, you didn't have help. You didn't know how to act. You didn't know how to heal. You didn't know how to feel better. You created a way to feel better. So unless you're being held in like therapy or there's some kind of modality holding you to go to those places, it is really hard to access. And so sometimes the only way to get there is through the acting out, is through the outburst, is through the overwhelm. It like increases the heat that people start to have no choice but to see what's happening underneath.
Right. So I think that brings me to my next question, which is what's the difference between calm, so this composure that we've been talking about, and being regulated?
Calm and being regulated.
Yeah.
Well, I think calm is just like the state, like the current state. Regulated and regulation is actually taking multiple states and bringing it into whatever is possible. We don't even want to say calm, but maybe calm, maybe just composed, right? Holding it all together. I think I don't know if you've ever done yoga, but I think it's the difference between being able to breathe through an asana, breathe through a pose, and vinyasa. Not vinyasa, sorry. When you lay down,
Savasana.
savasana.
I'm a yoga teacher.
Oh, perfect. For me, I mean, I would say that's a difference between calm and regulated, right? Regulated, we're using different feelings in the moment and bringing them into a place where we're still in our center.
I think it's a really interesting analogy, especially as it's home for me because I am a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
So I really understand what you're talking about. And I do see that in my students, that difference between them breathing through something that's uncomfortable and learning to find comfort within discomfort,
Yes.
and then the total surrender to their state,
Yeah.
like in Savasana, where they just let it go.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the students that can let it go, let it go. And I think I say this all the time, and you may find this within your world. I think Savasana is actually the hardest pose in yoga
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people have such busy minds that to just lay there and be is a
Yeah.
very difficult thing for a lot of people to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And would you say that's true in our analogy between calm and regulated? It's very difficult for people to breathe through and then just be.
Absolutely. But I come from the perspective of honoring the entire process, even the part that feels really hard. as also beautiful. Like, instead of trying to attain the perfect calm in savasana, be with the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Also good,
Yep.
just where you need to be, and then the next day in the same practice. Like, it's good not to have it figured out just yet. It's good to be in the process of figuring it out. I believe that's where the self-intimacy is. It's not in the perfection. It's not in having had it already figured out. It's in the process of exploring how to get to a place where you're calm, how to talk to yourself, how to compartmentalize different things that are coming up for you, right? That whole dance with yourself to get to a place of calm is the part that I find the most rich.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I'm thinking about men, especially in relationships, as that relationship starts to change, um, for whatever reason, but primarily, obviously, my focus, perimenopause, brings a lot of changes to a relationship. Certainly in my relationship, the barometer that I use and a lot of men use is intimacy, both
Mm-hmm.
physical and emotional intimacy, as the barometer for the health of the relationship. And when that changes, their attitude towards the relationship changes. And so stress goes up.
Totally. I mean, and when we spoke, right, we understand that for people going through this transition, there's a lot of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And that confusion will expose where people are most vulnerable, both individually and as a couple, right? So if you're somebody that's already struggling with, it could be very, very old and you haven't felt it in a while, but like the feeling of being wanted.
Mm-hmm.
No, if it could be decades that you've ever felt that, but suddenly you're in this situation with your partner and they're going through something and it's confusing and they're rejecting you. That's going to trigger things in you that have that have already been there. So you have a predisposition to these reactions, and
Mm-hmm.
they start to come out and they start to add more to this already very difficult situation. And so I think it's really important for people to recognize, like, when you're in a new developmental stage, it is not the time to self-blame, to blame others, to assign meaning,
Right.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
hold on, get to where you are. I think about this a lot with my kids that are changing now. They're entering teenage years, and I see their changes, and they're speaking to me differently. And even with myself, I was like, am I a bad mother? Did I raise them wrong? Are they going to be disrespectful? And it's like, hold on, just wait a second. Be here, see what's happening. Try not to attribute any meaning to anything just yet.
Right.
Curious instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's definitely a good attitude for men to take. And how often do you think men can take that attitude of being curious rather than taking it personally? Because I certainly know in my situation, and men are centered, right? I mean, I think we talked about that in terms of, you were talking about society and commercialism. Men are centered, women are enculturated to orbit men, and men take on that role of it's about me.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly in my situation, I personalized everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is all about me.
Mm-hmm.
How do we move from, as a man, how do we move from it's all about me to seeing, not take, as you said, not kind of making decisions, not making judgments about what's happening, but actually coming with curiosity? How do we move from that?
Well, it it takes a willingness to not make it about you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it starts with that. And where can that come from? You know, It can come from getting actual help. Like if you're feeling like you're if you are hearing this and you realize you're in a relationship with someone and there is a change and you don't understand it and you're personalizing it, that is a great opportunity to get some outside help. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It means that you don't have the perspective to understand what is actually happening. You're just too close. If I'm looking at a painting like this, I won't see it the same way as if I'm looking at it like this. So to let the people that have chosen to become therapists with their life, let them help you without seeing that it's a weakness. Instead, it's a vantage point.
Right, right. I like that. I like that. Seeing it's not a weakness, because I think men do see seeking help as a weakness because they're taught that they can provide things like solutions and fix things, whether it's themselves or situations that are external to them. And I do think that men see these situations as, I'm not coping, so therefore I'm not being the man and I'm weak.
Right. Yeah. I mean, back to the original, right, part of this conversation, which is, feeling like they have to hold all of that composure.
Yeah.
I will say that therapy in general has there's this idea that therapy is about getting help. And that's because of how therapy started, right? It started because people really needed help and people stepped in to figure out what kind of help they needed.
Right.
Over time, therapy has become much more than that. And this is what I think people are really missing. It's become perspective. It's become a checkpoint, like an accountability checkpoint to evaluate your life, to see where you are. It's not just about help anymore. It's about thriving. It's not just about food, right? It's not just healing. It's how we move forward, how we thrive. So if we can work, around that and start changing that, I think it's really important to change that perspective. But back to what you said in terms of how can we help somebody not blame themselves? I think the person going through the change, the wife in this scenario, the female partner in this scenario, right? It's also a place for her to say, it's not about you. I don't know what this is, but I know it's not you. I don't know what it is.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's that would have made a big difference in my relationship if my if my wife had been able to say that to me and know that it would be received well. Because I think there's that part as well. Even if you're told, so I was starting when we got the language of perimenopause, and I was able to say, oh, okay, so perimenopause is the guilty party, not me. It was still very hard for me to say, it's not about me. It was that step that I had to take to step away from it being me and it being something else.
Yeah. But I think we have to get honest too in this very particular spot and say and ask, right? Get curious. For you in your life, how often would you blame yourself?
Yeah.
As a default meaning, as a default response.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah.
And so knowing your own tendencies and your own patterns are also really important part of getting through this. What is mine? What do I come in with from my previous vulnerabilities? Like we said, and what is new here? What is really related to this?
Yeah.
And if your partner has other ways of showing you that they are still there, notice them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So the intimacy isn't the same, but there's still other ways in which they are showing up in partnership. Those are the clues that they're still there. There's just something happening in the background that's making the relationship feel less like it used to be, different, making it feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're right. I mean, that's part of men adapting that barometer. What
Mm-hmm.
are you measuring the health of the relationship with? And what else can you use? What other cues are there that you can use to measure that health?
Exactly. I like
Yeah,
that word, barometer.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have another question
Sure.
about suppression. And what does suppressed stress, how does that show up in a person? How does that show up in men? And how does it show up in the body?
I see a lot of back pain.
Interesting.
Yeah. It could show up. I think people really, especially, in midlife and older, attribute back pain to aging.
Hmm.
And while it might be so, right, and part of it, there's a whole study around how, the back pain is actually related to emotional suppression.
Really?
Yeah, and other physiological symptoms as well, right? It could be jaw tightening, um, it could be just general irritability, it could be tightness in the body, kind of a rigidity in their body posture. It could be gut pain.
Hmm.
I used to work with, I used to work with people that would come in and say, like, "I can't eat tomatoes, and I can't eat this, and I can't eat that," and I was like I held space for it, right? I'm not gonna dismiss it, but there was a part
Right.
of me that was like, maybe there's something else going on here that's creating the sensitivity," and many times, by the end of our work together there, these symptoms, these physiological symptoms would improve because they were emotional.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
So, so that's something that a man or a couple could be looking for in terms of sudden changes? Are these changes gradual? Is this something? I love that. I can't eat tomatoes. Is this something that is a gradual realization, or is this something that, you know, it just builds? It builds and builds. So there's things that lead up to this, or is it just one day, I can't do this?
It's everything under the sun. I mean, it's all of it, right? And
Okay.
mostly I see gradual, or I'll see like if we use back pain, it's like they had it once, they have them 6 months apart. They usually recover within a day or two.
Yeah.
Suddenly that 6 months becomes 4 months, and now it's 4 days to recover. And it kind of builds. And in between, they're fine. And so they think they're fine. They don't realize that it's really connected to something they're suppressing.
Right. And that kind of comes back to where we were talking right at the beginning, was the man who says he's fine.
Yeah.
Um, and perhaps what else are they suppressing? I think that's really interesting that there's the physical aspect that men, couples, women can be looking for in their partners as indicators that perhaps they aren't fine.
Yeah, and I would even say, like, they are fine, they just need support,
Right.
like, we haven't created the dance to support each other when we're feeling vulnerable. We usually just kind of, like, go our own ways, lick our wounds. Some people know to go to friends, like, some people have good resources and outlets
Hmm.
for when they're feeling vulnerable, but a lot of people don't, and, we could say it's a lot of men because they've learned to be so composed, to be men. And I think what we really need to do as people for each other is support anyone struggling. For a man that's struggling, still kind of help them through the arc, right? It's like, I'm going to support you as you're feeling vulnerable and still be here and receive you as a composed being when you're feeling composed. So that they don't feel like, oh, they're now seen as weak. It's a
Right.
moment in time.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's really interesting because, my conversations, I have a lot of conversations with men, with women, with experts like yourself. One of the things that continues to come up is that men over time, over their relationships, tend to move away from external support systems, and their partner becomes their support system.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, relying on any one human to become everything that life has to offer is a lot. Stay open, stay hungry for life, get curious, try new things, um, get curious about people, make
Hmm.
conversation. You
Yeah.
know, these things are important for individuals to feel themselves. You need to feel like an individual, like who you are when in relationship. When you merge or expect somebody to fill your being,
Hmm.
that's when, you know, that's when you have these entanglements and these stories, and we start to get confused about what is actually ours to take responsibility for and what's not.
Do you have an opinion on why men do that? Why they let go of perhaps when they were younger, they had a good core of male friends and or even male and female friends, and they gradually let go of those social connections to focus primarily on their partner.
I would be guessing, but I actually think it has to do with them overvaluing their life mission, their role, their job, and
Mm.
undervaluing relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And that over time they lose, it kind of atrophies, and they lose their ability to connect easily with others.
Right. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, definitely.
And I
Um,
think it's more true in the United States. I mean, you in the United States? I
yeah.
think it's more true in the United States. I mean, I have family that's European, and the men in Europe are they're I mean, France. I can't lump all of Europe into one, but
Right.
they have. I've just seen kind of healthier male relationships and connections there. Still, not as much as I see in women.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Also, I think that for men, and it's different for women, women really, I mean, these are such generalizations, but we're going to continue to do it this way. Women will regain their battery when they're in social interactions, when they're in groups,
Hmm.
where it's understood that men do that in isolation. And
Right.
so they may think that what they need is more time alone, more time in nature, more of that. And it is good, but it's imbalanced. There needs to be in there other pursuits of life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's very true in terms of the men I see. Even the men that come through the studio, yoga studio, um, their connection with other students, and
Hmm.
you see them as they develop those connections, and it even shows up in how they practice. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Will I be accepted, loved, belong, seen as, good, seen as
Hmm.
well, if I'm also vulnerable, open, soft?
Yeah, yeah. So thinking about this, why do you think men are so good at hiding distress?
Practice. If you look at a little boy, I don't think
Hmm.
they're so good at hiding distress.
Right.
They were told to hide their distress over time, over time, over time. And I think that that becomes the new norm. It doesn't mean that the stress isn't there or that the fear response isn't there. They become very good at hiding it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
think men also have a stronger fight or flight response than women. Um,
Interesting.
it's to stress when they're in stress. So
Hmm.
So, for example, if you approach, I learned this when we were learning about relationships and couples, so if the female partner approaches the male partner in this kind of like sharp, we need to talk, that it's important to recognize that at that moment, their fight or flight response is going up. And so the real, the way you want to approach them is not in this like sharp, direct way that's going to trigger their fight or flight response, but instead something a little bit softer, something with a container. Can we have 5 minutes so they kind of know how long it's going to be, right? So that whatever stress they're feeling doesn't then trigger them to either um, move towards you and be have fight energy or move away and withdraw, or just like numb. Numb is a form of withdrawing, right? Being distracted on my phone is a form of withdrawing. So all of those are those responses.
That's really interesting. That feeds into something that I explore with men when I'm talking about this, which is sit, listen, and believe. And I think that sit part, I hadn't thought about putting a container around that, saying, let's sit down for X minutes. I think that's a real, really interesting and really good way to set that side apart, that time apart, where, I talk about people setting the time apart away from everything else, the other distractions, whether they've got children or aging parents, but away from chores and away from the dinner table, and actually making time to talk about their relationship. But I hadn't thought about that part
Mhm.
where you can actually put a time frame around it. Let's talk about this for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a great, yeah, that does. I hadn't thought about that reducing stress as
Mhm.
well, because then the man knows what he's going into.
And how long he has to stand it for,
Yes.
right? And when we look at like why is it easier for men or why is it harder for men? And this is just not the terrain that they're like choosing. No,
Right.
it's easier to do things that have like that are more linear or have structure to it. But when it's kind of this like open-ended flow, that's not really the masculine tendency. The masculine tendency is to have more structure. And so we're asking for something that's not in their typical like where they would typically lean or choose to feel.
Right. Yeah. 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 I see that. One of the things that you said earlier, we were talking about change and the changes that people are experiencing. And one of the things I experienced, coming back to that barometer thing, was, is this the end? Is this how our relationship is going to be from now on? So there's a lot of uncertainty. What
Mm,
do you think prolonged uncertainty does to men in particular? But people in general, but particularly men. What do you think that prolonged uncertainty does?
I mean, it's torture. Like, let's be honest. It's really uncertainty for everyone is tough, but uncertainty for somebody who's trying to hold space, make everyone feel safe, you know, hold the family together in from that place, like that's really painful. And I mean, I lean on a lot of spirituality to get through things like that.
Hmm.
And that's when you really need outside resources,
Right.
just like things that bring you life, that make you feel happy, that's outside of the relationship, so that you can bring a recharged, fortified, strengthened version of yourself back in. But prolonged uncertainty, uh, without that, right? If you don't have any of those outside structures that like give you a sense of grounding, knowing who you are, you're gonna feel lost and insecure,
Hmm.
and also lose a sense of yourself. So your partner's, dealing with it physiologically, biologically, and you're dealing with it psychologically. And
Right.
you're all, I mean, everyone here in this situation, right, is going through a developmental stage. So when you're
Hmm.
going through a prolonged developmental stage and you don't know when it's going to end or if it's going to end, the best thing you can do for yourself is have a lot of self-compassion and find places where you do have a little bit more control.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things we see, and this is picking up on what you just said about identity, and one of the things that I've seen come up in conversations is men losing or shifting their sense of identity, their sense of self. What is their role? Because they're coming to situations where they fix or provide solutions. And especially in perimenopause, there's no fix because there's nothing broken. There's no solution because it's not a problem to be solved. So, what's my role then?
Oh, holding the space. Think of a mountain and like thunderstorms and the weather in general, right? In this question, the man is, but the husband, the partner is the mountain. And if the wind comes and the tornado comes and it blows him away, right, then he's not really able to hold the energy that's around him, which she really needs. And this is across the board. You know, this is any stage of a relationship. What she really needs is to feel that he is grounded like a really strong, fortified mountain, so that if she needs to swirl around and be in the full range of her emotion and she doesn't know what's going on, he's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful analogy as well.
Yeah. Like he's got this, right? So where he fixes things is actually in his ability to hold still, not personalize, and know that as he does that, the love that she develops towards him will vibrate, it will expand, it will increase. She herself is confused, afraid, doesn't know what's going to happen. And so when she looks over and her partner can hold it, and I don't mean withstanding abuse, that's a whole other,
right.
But when he can hold it for her, a lot more from her in good sense can open. There's so much gratitude that happens at the end of that storm. The sun comes out, right?
Yeah, definitely. So when you think coping, and we talked about a little bit about coping, men coping, when do you think that becomes a problem?
When you dismiss your actual feelings. Back to the suppression, right? Coping with dismissing can be damaging to your body, right? Your body can suppress it and it can get sick. Disease, dis-ease. I'm not at ease. You're holding dis-ease in your body. You are generating disease slowly in your body. So coping with suppression can be the beginning manifestations of a disease.
Okay.
A lot. I know it could be a lot.
No, that's a great, and I mean, I'd never even thought, and I love language. I'd never even thought about that. Dis-ease.
But coping to integrate, coping as a way of meeting yourself in the distress and continuing to thrive in life, that's self-love. That's right. We're having a hard day, let's go for a walk. We're having a hard day, let's go meet a friend. That's the kind of coping that brings somebody into greater wholeness. Yeah. But if you're not there and if you're on the other side, right? It's like amazing that you're listening to this, amazing that you have a starting point. And just like in yoga, like how I said earlier, I actually think the savasana that's the chaotic is the best type of savasana. Because then you get to actually meet yourself and work with yourself. Once you have it figured out, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it becomes easier.
Yeah.
So to start to wrap up, just on kind of bring this back to a more positive, because we've dealt with some of the negative aspects. But what does healthy resilience look like?
Being able to experience what you're experiencing, meet yourself where you are, provide that coping, like we said, and come back into relationship, come back into love, forgiveness.
Okay.
Right? When we're wounded because our partner acted or did something or turned away from us and we feel rejected, and then we don't come back, we kind of stay in that pain. We're not in that resilience. So it's coming back into love, coming back into forgiveness. Communication is really important. One of the things I would suggest every partner do, and this I got from Brene Brown, another psychologist, she's very popular. I think I saw this somewhere on her social media, but it's at the end of the day, her and her partner get together and they're like, where are you? And if one person is 80 and the other person is 20, then the one that's 80 will pick up the slack, right? But if they're both at 20, then they come together and they discuss how to meet, how do they get the rest taken care
Right.
of. So coming up with strategies like that is really helpful for resilience, and always come back into partnership as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So just to close out, if you could say one thing for men going through what is a particularly stressful time, what's one thing that they could take away and act on? I don't know, putting you on the spot.
Mm-hmm. No, I want to make it good because it's one thing. What is one thing that they could do? Yeah. See your partner as a flower blossoming.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, it's like the petals are fighting the outer shell of the flower. And the more you kind of support and wait and give it love and speak to it, one day you will see it in full bloom. And it will be magical, and you'll look at it in just pure awe and beauty. And your partner is in a developmental stage, and they're working through those petals, and they're opening one at a time, and she will bloom. And you will have this new aspect of her that wasn't available before. And you get to witness that. You get to see that, and you get to enjoy that on the other side. Just, and whatever tools that you need in the meantime, get them.
Right. I think it's beautiful. I love that analogy as well about her blooming, because she does. You're right. I think that's one of the big things that I learn. I think it's both one of the big things that men generally learn is that this is not the same woman that she was 10, 20 years ago. It's a whole new woman, and that's not a bad thing.
It's an amazing thing. It's a woman, right? It's a real woman in full bloom in all of the different layers and developmental stages that she's gone through.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Natalie, thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. It
Thank
was a
you.
lot of fun. All the best. All the best to you and everyone listening. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.